That's good news. Good evening, everyone. Before I call this meeting to order, I will ask everyone to please silence cell phones and other electronic devices and remind council to do the same, and that our procedure bylaw prescribes the use of technology during council meetings. It is 6:30 p.m. I'll call this council meeting to order and acknowledge that the municipality of Brighton is located is located on the Mississauga-Anishinaabeg territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton recognizes that the Mississauga nations are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. And for the approval of the agenda, I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council approve the October 6, 2025 Council agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And I will note that Councillor Boutwell has sent regrets for this evening. Members of Council, have you any declarations of interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. There are none noted. Are there any announcements this evening? Councillor McCausland.
I just want to say that Applefest was amazing. I know that there's probably going to be some other announcements about that, but I just want to say thanks to everyone who put in the long days of work for yet another amazing year up for the books of Applefest. And it was a fun race in the huge hamster balls.
You only had to do it once. Any other announcements? Thank you for that. It was on my list, so I appreciate that announcement. Any other announcements this evening? Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
I too would like to say, it was a fantastic Applefest. Really well put together. So many people on that committee put so much work and effort into it, and a special mention to Caroline Birch for being the thread that holds it all together. The other comment I would like to make is I just want to give a shout out to the fire chief and his guys, because they did tremendous work the night before Applefest with a accident that happened across the road. It just very well handled, very quick response, and thankfully everybody was okay at the end of it.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? The week before Applefest, I was able to attend the Ontario East Municipal Conference. If any of you have an opportunity to go to this one, it is incredibly relevant to our community and the communities in Eastern Ontario. It's almost entirely economic development based, so it has a lot of good relevant information for those of us wondering how best to drive our local economies. And it's a well done conference with folks you probably know every time you turn a corner. So it's nice and familiar that way. Councillor Wright and Councillor McCausland and I had a chance to attend the 40 Under 40 event, just before Applefest, where we celebrated 5 Brightonians, I believe, including 2 of our own staff, Caroline Birch and Ben Hagerman, Meg Fox of the Tin Roof and the Home Rainbow Youth Center. I've forgotten the names already. I got Ben and Caroline, but there were 2 others. One is a Belleville police officer, first name Aaron, and the other is a psychotherapist out of Trenton, Taylor, first name Taylor, but I can't remember the last names either. But lots of good representation from all over the Bay of Quinte region, and once again, Brighton represented well. Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
That's Taylor Nelson.
Taylor Nelson, thank you very much.
Deserved.
Yes, I appreciate that. And hopping on the Applefest, there was also a volunteer thank you event last Thursday for the volunteers. First time I think we've done something like that. And it was nice to see the core group of volunteers there receiving their thanks. It was held at Northumberland Fine Foods, and Caroline was able to extend her thanks for the volunteers, and then I was able to extend my thanks for Caroline and all the work that she does to make Applefest a reality. So last chance for our announcements. Thank you, everyone. The adoption of the minutes is moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council receive the September 15th, 2025 Council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. And a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council approve the September 29th, 2025 special council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. We have no statutory public meeting this evening. There are no delegations or presentations. Madam Clerk, are there any citizens' comments to consider? There are no citizens' comments. That brings us to staff reports. And the first report is Project Status Report, Integrated Community Sustainability Plan. Director Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that council receive the staff report regarding the project status of the Integrated Community Sustainability Plan. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. It was a really good session. I was very glad to be there representing the Sustainability Advisory Committee, who has also had the opportunity to provide input ending tomorrow with regard to giving their preference on which of the draft vision statements they would prefer. They're all really strong, actually. And whittling down the 2030 objectives. We've got 25 on the list right now, and it might be more than we can chew at the same time. Whittling it down will be a challenge because they are all very important and exciting initiatives.
We look forward to what that looks like at the end of it all. Anything further on the motion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. The next item is the 2026 budget schedule. Manager Creamer, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland. The council approved the special council meeting to be held on November 24th at 6:30 p.m. to receive comments from the public and direct any changes for the final draft budget to be presented on December 16th. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next item is the records management legal hold procedure and email records management policy. Madam Clerk, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight? Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. The council receives the staff report regarding the records management legal hold procedure and email records management policy for information. And the council approves the legal hold procedure attached to Schedule A and the email records management policy attached to Schedule B to the report. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next report is the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Policy. Deputy Clerk, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, just a bit of an update for council following the customer service procedure approval. All staff have been attending training about the updates and the changes in the procedure. That training has been followed by a disability and inclusion training from the staff at the Ability Center in Whitby to provide kind of a firsthand knowledge and eye-opening experience into accessibility and inclusion, which kind of leads right into this policy. So no training in this policy specifically, but the inclusion part was kind of included with the disability part.
Thank you for that. I have a motion moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. The council received the staff report CLK 2025-136 and adopts the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Policy as drafted. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to note that, yes, there's tremendous amount of overlap between the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee's perspective and that of the Accessibility Committee. And I really appreciate how much input the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee had into this policy. So thank you for that, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Thank you for that comment. Any other comments? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Next report is a CAO ongoing report and capital projects update. The CAO is not in attendance this evening, so I will read the motion. It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council receive the CAO ongoing report and capital projects update. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. We have no notices of motions or motions. We have nothing listed under unfinished business, which brings us to bylaws. The first bylaw is with regard to Ferguson Hill Road encroachment agreement. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an encroachment agreement between the municipality of Brighton and landowners of property located at 14 Ferguson Hill Road. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. The next bylaw is a medical services funding agreement, and it's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between Dr. Smitasov, is it Sauvé, and the municipality of Brighton regarding a medical services funding agreement. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next bylaw is with regard to the purchase and sale of land at Sharp Road. It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement of purchase and sale of lands, part of Lot 33, Concession B, Brighton, Part 1 and 2, Plan 39R14236 and 39R14866, Sharp Road. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. We move into reports, minutes of advisory committees of council and review teams. This is the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Councillors Wheeldon and Wright, do you have anything to highlight on those minutes? Homelessness Task Force, Councillors Wheeldon and McCausland. Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, Councillors Butwell and Wheeldon. Councillor Wheeldon. Rural Advisory, Councillor McCausland. Very well. Heritage, Councillor McCausland. No. Environmental Sustainability, Councillors McCausland and Wheeldon.
I thought of something to highlight from the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion
Please go ahead.
Committee. One of the things that drove the initiation of that committee in the first place was a desire to highlight the diversity within our community. And we had been looking for ways of highlighting cultural diversity. And we kept coming back around to, do we have an event specific to that? And food is usually a great way to engage with different cultures. And so we kept coming back around to that. And eventually, Caroline Birch came up with a great workaround where we instead invited people to highlight the diversity of the food offerings available at Applefest through a food passport program. And so we dedicated some of our budget to covering a draw or prizes in the draw. So people who went to different food vendors that were pre-approved as being different, representing different cultures. They would get their passport stamped and people who had three stamps in their passport could be entered into a draw to win a $500 vacation in Brighton package, $400 toward licensed short-term accommodations, and $100 toward local food. And it was hugely successful. We gave out all of our passports almost immediately. And it's a good economic development opportunity as well. Great workaround. So appreciation to the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee for being at Applefest, handing out those food passports and drawing attention to some cultural diversity in Brighton. Big thanks to Caroline and the whole Applefest team.
Who won?
I don't know. There were four. They were going to draw for four different prizes, all $500. So, four lucky people.
Brilliant.
I hope that it was people who came to Brighton to check out Applefest and said, "I like it so much here that I want to come back."
We hear a lot of that, so let's hope so. Councillor McCausland. You're good? Anyone else? Motion is moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council receive the following committee meeting minutes as presented. Accessibility Advisory Committee, May 8th, 2025. Homelessness Task Force, June 6th, 2025. Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee, June 12th, 2025. Rural Advisory Committee, May 22nd, 2025. Heritage Advisory Committee, May 12th, May 26th, and July 14th, 2025. Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee, June 24th, 2025. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? And being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to the draft minutes of the Rural Advisory Committee of September 18th, with the motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that Council receive the draft minutes from the September 18th, 2025 Rural Advisory Committee meeting as information. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor McCausland.
More or less just a comment. I know this is basically just for us to go over the Brighton Rural resident survey. The responses were very good for the rural, I guess, portion of the community, but I just wanted to touch with the winter months kind of coming up. We talked about the rapid program that we have. It's on the municipal website, but it's for weather announcements, I believe, when like the storms come and the bad weather. So if you're not, it's on the municipal website, and we talked a lot about that, and it's really well run through the fire portion of the municipality.
Thank you for that. Anything further? All those in favor? And being none opposed, that motion's carried. The motion moved by, we're moving on to Heritage Advisory Committee draft minutes. And it's moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council support the recommendation from the Heritage Advisory Committee regarding changes to the recognition and designation of heritage properties policy, and that Council direct staff to review the recognition and designation of heritage properties policy for possible changes to the designation process for Council consideration. Is there any discussion? Director Walsh, what does that mean to us?
To the Mayor of Council, I think what the committee is really looking at is hoping to no longer be having the default policy that we will only look at designating properties with permission of the landowner. So I think they're looking a little bit more flexibility in scope there, but I wasn't at the last meeting, so perhaps the Deputy Clerk can assist further.
Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. No, the goal of the committee right now is to try and streamline the process. The committee puts in a significant amount of work to determine whether a property is worth considering for designation, and then they put in an additional amount of work to bring forward that report for council to consider it. And the fear is that they're putting in a lot of work and effort to be able to contact the owner of the property. The way the policy is written right now is very much that we need council approval to even contact the owner. So what they're looking for is just, to open the lines of communication with the owner prior to putting in all this work, hopefully to answer any questions or concerns ahead of that time, so that when that report does come here to council, it's with some backing already from the owner. And rather than putting in that work and it being approved by council to contact the owner not being in favor, and council not being in favor of designating the property after quite a long process. So they're just trying to streamline it a little bit better.
Sounds sensible. Councillor Wheeldon?
Yeah, that was my understanding as well. And it's what we've talked about almost every time this has come up is, well, do these people know that this is being considered? Now they will.
Yeah, good plan. Anything further on the motion? Go ahead, Director.
Just to assist further, MPAC has some rules of what data can be accessed or not, and they seemed, on the Planning Act, we have to use their data, so it's already recognized as a permission. So I think it might be as simple as just confirming with MPAC that information is available for the purposes of the committee.
Thank you for that. Anything further on the motion? Councillor McCausland?
I was just going to say that I agree. I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. And recommendations from environmental sustainability. It's moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council support the recommendation from the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee regarding Bill 21, and that council support Bill 21, Protect Our Food Act 2025, and direct staff to draft the terms of reference for agricultural impact assessment reports. Is there any discussion, Councillor Wheeldon?
Yeah, so Bill 21 is a provincial bill that is sponsored by two MPPs from different parties. One's an independent, one's a Green, and it proposes to create a food belt, not unlike the Green Belt, but certainly relevant to an area like ours, recognizing the long-term importance of sustaining farmland and agricultural communities. The bill is very short. I do recommend looking it up, but it basically says if passed, it would create a committee that would look into, okay, what would actually be in a food belt and how do we do it? So it should be pretty non-controversial. The second part of it is directing staff to draft terms of reference for agricultural impact assessment reports. This is the second part of Bill 21 that proposes making this a standard thing, so that if there is a development proposal that comes to us that would result in there being less farmland available in perpetuity, that we would have a report that tells us that. Basically, and Director Walsh thought that's something that we can do anyway, so we might as well do it.
Thank you. Anything further on the motion? Director Walsh, on the last part, draft of terms of reference for agriculture impact assessment reports, how much extra work are we talking about for staff?
I don't believe there would be a lot there. They should exist out there in other jurisdictions as a matter of best practice, and I wouldn't be surprised if OMAFRA actually has something to give us.
Okay.
Yeah, and oftentimes it really is up to the qualified person, and there's a professional soil pedologist. We don't really need a terms of reference too detailed for them. They know what's being asked. The only time it becomes a problem if someone's deciding to justify a severance in agricultural land, and they're trying to indicate why this small acreage farm is somehow viable, then there might be some direction that is beneficial at that point.
Thank you for that. Anything further on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
In that specific use case that Director Walsh has pointed out, I've come across that in a few different instances where people are trying to get into farming. They don't have $5 million to buy a 120-acre cash cropping operation with $1 million machinery and et cetera, but they want to have a market garden that they can sell products at our farmers market or otherwise locally from their farm gate or things like that, which really keeps agricultural products here in the community. It's better for local economy, et cetera. And yet, we against farmland being broken up in any way, which does bias us against the new farmer or the young farmer. It biases us against market gardens and things like that, because we recognize we don't want to break up farmland because that's often how it disappears. And so this is a tool of being able to qualify why in some cases it might actually be better for farming to have a smaller farm. But it does make somebody actually prove it, which is better than just automatically saying no.
Thank you for that. It's interesting. I'm having a conversation with a local farm family tomorrow where the adult child wants to get into the business on their own without farming with the parents, but it becomes impossible because we can't sever a parcel of land for them to farm. Although I understand that perhaps we have some creative solutions for them. So that's what I appreciate about our staff. We always seem to find creative solutions. Anything further on the motion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And a second one from Environmental Sustainability, moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland. The council support the recommendation from the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee regarding a 2026 budget request, and that council direct the request to the Budget Committee for consideration. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. All right, that brings us to reports and minutes of statutory committees, boards, and external agencies. The first is the Proctor Park Working Group. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receive the Proctor Park Working Group terms of reference for information. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm not sure if this has to come through council, but it was discussed at our working group that we might, excuse me, we might like to add a change and see if we could get our Director of Public Works, Mr. Lennon, on board as an extra member for. So I don't know if that has to go through. We just thought he would probably have some good advice for what we're trying to move forward.
Well, he's here. Let's ask.
I know, but well, we can ask him for sure. I'm sure it will work, but we didn't know if we needed to add, if that needed to be discussed here through council, if we need to make that change with these terms.
We're receiving these terms of reference. They're not our terms of reference for the working group. They appear to be Lower Trent's. So if Lower Trent would have to, however, their terms of reference process works, they would have to change it to add Director Lennon as a member.
Right, and they were agreeable of the suggestion for sure. So, Mr. Lennon, you able to sit on this committee? Thank you.
Director Lennon.
Through the mayor to Councillor Rowley, I'd be happy to. Yes.
You checked with the boss? I mean, I know she's not here, so you can do whatever you want, but
I guess I have free reign if she's the leader.
you will be sure to tell her when she returns. I trust. Any further on this motion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next is a Northumberland OPP Detachment Board with a motion moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. The council received the Northumberland OPP Detachment Board July 18th, 2025 meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And the Brighton Public Library Board meeting minutes moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland. The council received the Brighton Library Board June 25th, 2025 meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And the Save Our Heritage Organization meeting minutes moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The council received the August 14th, 2025 Soho meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to correspondence, direction items, endorsements, communications, and petitions. The first communication is a letter to Premier Ford from me with regard to automated speed enforcement. It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council support Mayor Brian Ostrander's letter to Premier Ford regarding automated speed enforcement. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank you yet again for this letter. I know it's already gone, but we are seeing people slow down. It's very obvious. I was hearing some figures again yesterday about the difference in your chances of a full recovery if you get hit by a car going 30 versus going 40 versus going 50. And you have almost a complete chance of a full recovery if you get by a car going 30. Very little chance from one going 50. It makes a big difference. So really appreciate that people are trying to slow down on our roads. And I know it's uncomfortable and frustrating to have change on something that we've taken for granted for so long. But whatever the Premier ends up deciding to do, I sincerely hope that Brightonians will continue to do the right thing and slow down.
Hear, hear. Anything further on this motion? Councillor Wright?
I was just wondering, was your letter part of the 22 municipal leaders who sent it off as well?
Mine does not seem to be considered in that 22 municipal
Okay.
leaders. I think their request is that the regulations be changed so that we can continue to run ASE. Whereas mine is simply a note about safety and
Safety, yeah.
public safety in the community.
Yeah, they do have some specific suggestions on how to move forward with it that might be more amenable to the Premier. So I was just wondering if yours was part of that, and I don't know if we can add something to that tonight that maybe links
We can
into that.
certainly add those kinds of things to the motion and then distribute our motion to others similar to my inclusion of who we copied it to, if you'd like. So what are the things they're suggesting in their letter? I know one is specific tolerance levels, I believe.
The first one mentioned is warning tickets for a first-time offense, so not an actual monetary fine, but a warning. Setting cameras at a reasonable threshold of speed before a ticket is issued, which I would think that we are doing anyways. Cameras only operate during school and community use times. And then blackout on additional fines for 7 days after a driver receives the first ticket to allow them to change their behavior. And then there's some discussion about where the fees collected, where they would be spent in the community afterwards in terms of other traffic calming measures.
We've already designated our money specifically to that purpose, so we wouldn't want to, well, we could include it for that, just to note it, highlight the fact, yeah. Councillor Wright, you're the mover, so I assume you're okay with including this kind of thing, Councillor Rowley? All right, I'm going to draft something, if everyone give me a second here. So if we add something like, and further that Brighton Council supports regulatory changes, including the addition of threshold limits, providing warnings on a first offense, time of use, operations, 7-day blackout after a first ticket is issued, and a specific designation for funds to traffic safety or calming. Does that work? Councillor Rowley? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
I'm not going to quibble with it, but on regard to time of use, it reminds me of conversations that we've had about, and conversations I've had with residents about bylaw enforcement and about how people tend to know that Alan goes home at 5 o'clock and they park wherever they want after that. I know that some folks in town have told me about how in Trenton on Highway 2, they've got the flashing lights to tell you it's time to go 40. Well, people are still doing 50 and 60 there, whether the lights flash or not. In my mind, the thing that I've benefited from having these cameras here is that it has helped me to reset my internal sense of how fast I should be going on the road. And I'm finding myself driving 40 anywhere in town, not just on this stretch. I'm not doing it because I know the camera is coming. I'm doing it because my sense of how fast I should be going when I'm in town has adjusted. And when we say, sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't, you lose that benefit, I think. So that's my take, but I'm happy to leave it in anything that can help us move the needle and make this more palatable for people. If we think it'll actually make people accept this as a valid way of enforcing the law, if they can drive faster after 6 p.m., I guess. I don't know.
I understand your concern. Councillor McCausland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, kind of just picking back on what Councillor Wheeldon said. People don't stop going for walks and such after 6 o'clock. They still have to get places if they're going somewhere by foot. I think it would be great if we could keep this. I think it would be silly to put pedestrians at risk if we're going to pull it and put a crosswalk there. I would like to see this continue on in our municipality. I know it's sometimes annoying for people when they get that ticket, but it's just a reminder that, you gotta kind of pay attention, and there are a lot of residents in town that are more important than the speed on your dash.
Thank you for that. So do we want to strike the time of use or keep it in? Councillor Wright.
I think it makes it a little bit more palatable for people. Even my own husband has commented the difference between that stretch of road and even the community safety zone that's in front of Spring Valley, where it's time of day, seems more reasonable for a lot of people's brains. Just as a point of fun, as another option of what to do with the money that is collected in Sweden, they did a lottery. So if you did the proper speeds, you are automatically entered into a lottery and you got to win part of the proceeds. Likely not, but I just thought it was a fun thing to mention.
I like the lottery where everyone's taxes go down
Yeah.
because I think that's driving affordability for Brighton, but just wanted to throw that one out. Dr. Walsh.
I just thought I'd share that on Friday. AMO hosted a really robust conversation among about 54 municipalities, I think was online. And so there is a lot of those same points that brought up that Councillor Wright was just mentioning. So if there can be assistance to council, we can bring back a little brief staff report if it's not untimely, or just work through the mayor to give some background to some of that robust discussion.
Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
And another thing I was wondering about in terms of, all the background conversation that we see happening on the Brighton residents page. There's a lot of concern about whether or not the company that this is being driven through is Canadian or not. I've tried to do some research to figure it out. It's not entirely clear. I wouldn't mind seeing, or if anybody's got that information on hand, if they could share.
It is an American company with a branch plant in Canada. I
Canada,
believe they
that's
do
what I
have
thought.
Canadian employees on site in Western Ontario.
Our vendor provider is Dacratech, and they have some staff in, I think it's Toronto, but they also have a partner company, Traffic Logics, who provides the cameras, and they're elsewhere in southwestern Ontario. Yes.
Sure, I'm getting that. Okay, thank you. So there are Canadians employed by this company doing the work in Canada. So data is not leaving the country. I think for me, that's the important thing, that nobody's data has left Canada.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. There's, just with the whole Canada-US thing going on, there's concern there, but I'm happy to know that there's Canadians that are being employed.
Perhaps if we had signed this agreement post US election, we would have gone a different route, but I think nobody thought what happened would happen. So there we are. Anything further on the motion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next letter comes from the Town of Aurora Elect Respect campaign. It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council receive or support the Town of Aurora resolution regarding Elect Respect campaign support. I assume we're supporting this. Is there any discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. These are the kinds of things that we should be able to take for granted. And I know that the first time that I ran for public office, it was federally back in 2015. And I signed a candidate pledge because I was part of the party that did that, that said mostly the exact same things. So these are things that should be baked into the way that we operate. And thankfully around this horseshoe, they are. And so once again, I am grateful to be here with you all. Thankful to have such respectful colleagues. For the sake of anyone listening, I'm just going to read it out. The things that we would be committing to do by supporting this. Treating all individuals with respect in every setting, public, private, and digital. Speaking out against harassment, intimidation, and personal attacks. Keeping debate focused on ideas and public policy, not individuals. Fostering an environment where people of all backgrounds feel safe and supported in seeking and holding public office. Urging relevant authorities to ensure the safety and protection of elected officials facing threats or abuse. And demonstrating leadership through integrity, accountability, and mutual respect among colleagues and constituents. I see that around this table, and I'm thankful for you all. I hope that it's noticed among our residents as we look ahead to a year from now when an election will be happening. I hope that everyone in Brighton feels like this is something they could do and maybe something they should do to serve their community, and that nobody is intimidated away from seeking public office here in Brighton.
Thank you for that. Anything further on this motion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next is from the City of Kitchener regarding postage. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council received the resolution from the City of Kitchener regarding postage. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next one comes from the County of Northumberland resolution regarding traffic safety, emergency worker protection, and emergency detour routes. It's moved by Councillor Wright and seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson that council receive or support the County of Northumberland resolution regarding traffic safety, emergency worker protection, and emergency detour routes. I'm assuming we're going to support this one, Councillor Wright. Is there any discussion on this motion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to FYI correspondence from Northumberland County update, September 15th to 26th, September 29th to October 10th. It's moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council received the Northumberland County update September 15th to 26th and September 29th to October 10th, 2025 as information. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next is a letter from the Honorable Todd McCarthy, Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks regarding blue box regulation. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland. The council receive for information a letter from the Honorable Todd McCarthy, Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks regarding blue box regulation, producer responsibility organizations. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to note that I share the Honorable Todd McCarthy's disappointment that the PROs will not support the IC&I collection, IC&I being industrial, commercial, and institutional waste. It always seems absolutely wild to me that as the host of a landfill locally and contributor to all of our recycling programs, our own waste has to be privately collected and shipped to I don't know where and done with I don't know what. It's surely the vast majority of waste is not coming from residential households, but from IC&I. And so we're doing the right thing regarding the way waste is collected from residents in Northumberland County, but we have no idea what happens to the rest of it. And I think that's disappointing.
Yeah, a good deal of our commercial waste is picked up through the residential collection program. So Main Street, as an example, is still in that realm. But certainly there are large organizations in the community that have their own privately picked up garbage, and we don't know where that garbage goes, or whether they have their own recycling or what do we call that when any sortation level at all? No idea. Anything further on the motion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next letter is from the Solicitor General with regard to OPP cost recovery model. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland. The council received the letter from the Solicitor General regarding Ontario Provincial Police cost recovery model. Is there any discussion? Manager Creamer, you've received this information. How much effect will it have on our budget, give or take?
Through your worship, it's hard to comment what would have been without this model. I'm still catching up. I'm not entirely sure what the history was from last year. I know across the board, all in the area, many municipalities were about to see increases of 20 to 25% in the OPP budget. My expectation, because Solicitor General came in last year, helped reduce that impact last year. I think there was very little communication. Municipalities weren't able to plan for it. So with an 11%, I would expect that will make it half of what we would have seen otherwise.
Thank you for that information. Anything further on this? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next is Mayoral Directive 2026 Budget Preparation Schedule Revised. Is moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council received for information the Mayoral Directive MDIR 2025-002 Budget Preparation Schedule Revised. Is there any discussion? Just by way of council information, this comes from a discussion with the CAO requiring a little extra time. So my original letter detailed the timeline and we had to push it out a couple weeks. All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next letter comes from Alderville First Nation Remembrance Day Service and Every Child Matters Walk. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council received the correspondence letter from Alderville First Nation regarding the Alderville First Nation Remembrance Day Service, November 9th, 2025 at 12:30 p.m. and the Every Child Matters Walk, which has already taken place on September 30th, 2025. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
I did attend the Every Child Matters Walk on the 30th and got to walk alongside our police inspector and several of our colleagues from other Northumberland municipalities. It was an excellent event. They shut down Highway 45 and I want to say 300 or 400 people in orange shirts walked up the road and stopping periodically to get history lessons from Chief Simpson regarding the history of residential schools, how they started as what were called manual labor schools. They just didn't even sugarcoat it. Eventually, it went for the euphemism of industrial schools. and then residential schools, and finally day schools. But also talking about the relocation of Alderville First Nation from their, being able to occupy their entire traditional territory to being moved to a single island in Rice Lake, where they had a few hundred people trying to live on a 6-acre island before finally being allowed to come ashore in their current location. So a very, very sobering event, and certainly impactful. And I'm glad I finally went. I've been meaning to go spend more time in Alderville the last number of years, just to learn more about that history. So I highly recommend it for next year.
Thank you for that. Anything further on this motion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. That brings us to question period. Is there anyone in the gallery that has a question with anything that appeared on tonight's agenda? Mr. Green, you know the rules with regard to question period. I won't repeat them unless I have to.
I'll do my best. In regards to 13.2, the medical services agreement, the motion that was accepted suggests that there is terms and conditions as set out part of this agreement attached to Schedule A, forming an integral part of this bylaw. In my copy, there is no Schedule A, Your Worship.
It hasn't been signed, I'm told. That portion. It will be attached. It'll be attached to the minutes. It'll be attached to the minutes when the minutes are produced.
Thank you. May I ask another question?
You may, since
In
they're not
regards to
exactly
the
big lineup.
ASEs. I don't know how sophisticated our machines are, but we talked about having time of use. I've been informed and I've heard that some of our worst infractions happen at the most bizarre hours possible. And I don't know if the technology exists, but if we had a time of use that said, I don't know, from 8 p.m. till something, but the threshold was 70 and not 106, as has been recorded, is that possible? And I don't know the technology of our machines, but one would like to think.
Question only because I'm still hoping that cooler heads prevail at Queen's Park and that it is status quo moving forward. But should the regulatory changes happen, all of those questions will get asked. But Director Walsh, do you have an answer for that question?
Senior counsel to our gallery person. In our earlier discussions with Daggertech and Traffic Logics, who have the camera, I believe it is programmable to select certain, definitely can change the threshold for speeds and the time in which that would also apply. In this good discussion on Friday with AMO, pushing the discussion or leading the discussion and then taking those discussion points to the province for possible improvements, that was discussed, and some of the points made were exactly what you said, that we can't really predict risk. That risk is a function of probability times the severity. And also in response to Councillor Whelan's comment about rate of critical injury at slightly higher speeds compared to lower speeds, we may have much less probability of a critical injury during the evening hours, but at higher speeds, it's almost guaranteed to be more severe. So in the final analysis, it might be preferred not to have varying enforcement based on time. But
I did write to our MPP and express my concerns. When I saw that, I got the obligatory, "You're wrong, David" answer. And again, it continues to be disappointing. We can only hope that Premier Ford is looking for a way to gracefully back up like he did with the blue license plates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. We have no closed session this evening, which brings us to our confirmatory bylaw. It's moved by Councillor McCausland. I'm sorry, I should check that there's no one else in the gallery that has a question for tonight. And there's no one on Zoom for that purpose. The council gives a bylaws first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the corporation of the municipality of Brighton council meeting held on October 6, 2025. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And a motion moved by Council Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that the October 6, 2025 council meeting adjourn at 7:24 PM. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. May we be resolute in our duty to protect local and Canadian values, and may God save the King. Good night, everybody.